to play. Warriors, come out to play.
Welcome to Cause Before Symptom with your host, James Carner.
Tonight we're going to set the record straight on the Caribbean, Venezuela, what the hell's going on down there, why China and the U.S. are battling over it. Well, you'll find out. Welcome to Cause Before Symptom. I'm your host, James Carner. Today is October 18th, 2025. Tonight's episode is all about Venezuela, drugs. But it's really not about drugs at all. That's just a cover. It's about the new Silk Road and all of the oil that Venezuela owes to China. Apparently, they owe them $20 billion. For infrastructure that China has built for their new Silk Road 2.0. And, well, that's on our border. And America's like, no, that ain't going to happen. So if China loses Venezuela control, because it's either Venezuela isn't in control of their own country. Come on. With their little two-propeller fighter jets. And their military. No, they are not in control. They have no idea what is going on, other than there are two powers that want their oil, period. And China isn't interested in, China isn't interested in America doing what they're doing. We're going to talk about all that tonight. Shout out to everybody on the live chat to Rumble. We've got number one warrior is Boots Hafter saying, I smoke 2 joints in the morning. I smoke 2 joints at night. Okay, then. Warriors come out and pray, says Boots. Hello, Pastor James of the airwaves and Warrior family. Let's hit that thumbs up button. All right. Yes, please. You got to hit the thumbs up. That's the only way that we get anywhere. Rumble doesn't screw with the algorithm. It's been a long day with the boy. Rumble basically will rate you based on how many thumbs up you have versus how many subscribers. So please hit that thumbs up button to help my show. Number 2 warrior on live chat Rumble is Royal Rumble saying, what's up, Pastor? What's up, warriors? Happy Sabbath day, and God bless all of us. Smash that like button if you could. Be so kind. Thank you. Yes, please. That would help the show. Scorpion, number 3 warrior, saying, release the Kraken, warriors. It's Caribbean warfare. It's not about drugs, I promise you. I'm telling you. That's just a cover story, okay? It's not hard to find this information. It's not hard to do this. Look it up and find out what's really going on. You just have to think like a corporate master. And, how are you going to lower your $4 of gasoline in America? Well, you get it from Venezuela. And you screw China out of the deal. Well, China is screwing us. We're screwing China. Trump continues to say, hey, China's our enemy. And, well, yeah, they're the enemy of the Federal Reserve. Forgive me. So, yeah, there you have it. And number 4 warrior is Sheila saying, hey, what's up, Sheila? And Royal Rumble follows up with, after last night's episode, isn't it ironic that Venezuela's currency is hot garbage while the U.S. and China are fighting over them, cough, cough, IBS or BIS? Bank for International Settlements. Yeah. Robert Gertison says, another great show ahead. Let's go. Thank you, Robert. Glad you're here. And Boots says, sublime song. I smoke 2 joints in the morning. I ain't got no crystal ball. I don't know which song that was, but yeah. All right. So Boots is happy singing sublime. Sad what happened to the singer, but his son is picking it up right now, apparently, and sounds exactly like his dad. So there you have it. Shout out to everybody, guys. Thank you so much for being here on the show. It's probably going to be a short show tonight, dealing with issues, but let's get into breaking news.
Welcome to Shitty Breaking News with your host, James Garner, offering his shitty opinion.
That's really all it is. So there are photos of the No Kings protests against Trump administration returned nationwide. Dude, it looks like a bomb and a bad bomb, like it bombed bad. It looks like it was just the carpet was pulled out from under everyone's feet and it didn't do dick. Probably because the left is running out of funding. Trump has been cutting off their funding through USAID, which funded all kinds of senators and congressmen and mayors and district attorneys all across America to, help China, get in control of America, and all through Chicago, through the Chicago mob. And, well, when you cut off the left's money supply, so, too, are you going to cut off their election time? Because, dude, it's 3 years until the next election, and it doesn't seem like they got dick for squat. So they better pick it up. What's interesting is this next election is going to be the next Hitler, whether it's going to be a lefty or righty. I'm telling you guys, it is coming, so be careful. Get ready. That's where the world seems to be set up with, and you can look at my previous shows to find out all the details. Newsom, Chinaman, closes highway section amid feud with White House over Marine exercise. Apparently, Trump decided to piss him off by sending a bunch of ships to launch test missiles into California. Newsom's having a shit fit. The rumor is that Trump is going to send missiles and blow up some of California's ability to fight back with its own National Guard or even the Army itself, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like that, but you never know, man. And a lot of people are saying, especially Chewbacca, I do follow the gal, but she's way off on a lot of things. And surprising, I was like, man, she's on it. But then all of a sudden, she was way off on a few others. And I was kind of like, interesting. But I do like the gal. She's on TikTok and she's very, very smart. She knows a lot of languages and really seems like she knows what's going on worldwide, but not really. George Santos is back and Trump wants him to have a great life after commuting. Okay, well, George Santos, who gives a shit? Trump says 2 survivors of U.S. strike on submarine being sent to Ecuador, Colombia to jail. We're not fighting anything other than the China Silk Road in Venezuela that's going to help them ship goods and get cheap energy because, guys, China has been stealing oil from Venezuela, okay? And they've been smuggling it out in ships that don't look like oil ships, okay? So, come on. And that's what happens in the Strait of Hormuz and all of the other, Red Sea and all that shit way over there. It's China and Russia getting oil from Iran. And they're, shipping it, making them look like cargo ships, but they're not. They're actually oil tankers, and it is black market sold oil. And this is their way of, getting ahead of prices for all the sanctions that have happened against Russia, especially due to the BIS, the Bank for International Settlements, who put a freeze on their account. They can't borrow money right now from the International Monetary Fund, which they don't have any loans with anyway, and a freeze on their account from BIS to actually sit at the table and talk about, the New World Order. So, that's just how it is. U.S. Embassy in Trinidad and Tobago issues warning for Americans amid rising tensions in Venezuela. Yeah, we're going to go in there. We're going to say, China, get out. And China ain't going to do shit about it. The reason being is because they're in our territory. And America, along with NATO, well, China, you just don't have enough to kick our ass in that area. I just don't think so. That's just me. Human remains found behind abandoned school amid search for Kada Scott. I had no idea about this, but, hey, people are killing people. This is in Philadelphia, of all places. Some person named Kada got killed. Sorry, I didn't do it. And that's it. Really, there's really nothing else interesting other than that. So that's breaking news. Stick around. We're going to talk about the Caribbean, Venezuela, China, America, and all the reasons why we're over there. All right? Chill out.
Do you have tax burdens? Do you carry personal liability? If so, let me tell you why you have tax burdens and personal liability. And if you stick with me until the end, I'll share a simple solution to reduce the burdens you carry. When you put assets in your name, you also carry the liability. And by setting up a corporation, LLC, or partnership, you also carry the liability for the share of ownership you have in these organizations. So when you receive a W-2 form, 1099, or K-1 at the end of each year, that shows your liability for the assets you have carried in your name or your business name. The flow of liability works this way. You get a job, you take money in your name. When you are a contractor, you take money in your name. When you begin a business, you take money in the business name, which is set up with you as the owner. Nelson Rockefeller quoted, "The secret to success is to own nothing but control everything." He said this because when you own something in your name, you also own the liabilities. Introducing the solution. Begin an unincorporated association and remove assets out of your name while remaining in control and management of them. An unincorporated association is a state-registered entity that you can put assets into, is member-based and not tied to your name, has a tax-exempt EIN number, is private and not found when doing an online search. Whether you receive a 1099 or K-1 under your name, consider setting up your own unincorporated association and allow the association to be the owner of your assets and free yourself from the burden of personal liability. P.S. Join our affiliate program and receive payment for referrals.
All right, we're back to the show tonight. We're talking about Venezuela and why we have our military ships surrounding that place. Should be pretty obvious, but to most Americans, they listen to the news, and the news is not going to tell them. It's not about drugs, folks. America, we make plenty of drugs. We don't need drugs from Venezuela, nor do we need nor do we really have any issues with the drug cartel. That is that's a man. That is just. There's a word? I don't even have the word. Sorry, I'm tired tonight. It's just what it is. Didn't get much sleep last night at all. And anyway, it's a oh my goodness gracious Lord in heaven. It's a detour. They want you to look over here. Look at drugs instead of looking at the oil. Oh my God, the word will pop in my head soon. You guys will probably give it to me. Anyway, all right, moving on. So here's the pawn that guards the queen here, okay? This is the Caribbean chessboard, why China and the U.S. are battling over Venezuela. Here's the real deal. Now, we all know there's a war unfolding in the Caribbean. We've never seen anything like this before. No way. But we dropped the ball 20 years ago when we allowed China, and this was from blue states, right? Blue states, blue presidents, okay, leftists who are Chinese, allow Venezuela to do deals with China, and that's on us. Okay, we weren't paying attention to America being infiltrated by China through the Bush family. That is my story, and I'm sticking to it. Now, this war that's unfolding, it's not with sirens and bomb blasts. Well, it could be, but it's really all about shipping routes, drone strikes, and oil contracts that were signed in silence. Now, the world's attention is fixed on Israel, Ukraine, Taiwan, but just south of the border of America, a different game is being played, and it's not checkers. No, it's money. It's chess, not Trump 5D chess. No, No. He's not that smart. He's a bumbling idiot. And no, he's not a fucking time traveler. It is what it is. The kind of chess where pawns bleed and the kings never touch the board. Okay? Something's going on over there. And Venezuela, long dismissed as a failed socialist experiment, is now the front line of a larger battle, one between two empires vying for control of the Western Hemisphere. That's what's happening. China doesn't need to invade. It just builds. It builds infrastructure, ports, debt traps, surveillance networks in Venezuela. And through the Belt and Road Initiative, Silk Road 2.0, China has claimed Venezuela's oil, propped up Maduro's regime, right? They're in control of him. He's just a puppet, a pawn, and wrapped the nation in digital chains. Oh, tighter than any military occupation could deliver, all right? Because China gave them $20 billion to build infrastructure. And in exchange, they said, we'll give you oil. They took that $20 billion and spent it faster than you could say, well, shit. In America, well, it responds with warships and CIA missions. First time in history when the president says, we're sending in the CIA to divide the nation and put in our own emperor. That's the first. This is the first. Trump just said it. Yeah, I just called the CIA to go into Venezuela to break up that country and steal its resources. That's what Trump just admitted, all right? So it's funny. It's like that's not even a rumor anymore that the CIA does that. Trump admitted it, that we are going to sow chaos in Venezuela. We're going to cause a civil war. We're going to divide them between ideologies, sex, and all kinds of other things, just like they're doing in America. And then we're going to literally install our own puppet who gives us the oil instead of giving it to China. And we're going to stop China's Silk Road 2.0. So America responds with warships, CIA missions, all under the banner of anti-drug operations. Yeah, and the people are like, oh yeah, it's all about fentanyl. No. But these boats aren't just running cocaine. They're smuggling rebranded crude to China, bypassing sanctions that once meant something, all right? Yeah, bypassing OPEC, bypassing all of the sanctions on Venezuela, which are a ton. They're not supposed to be giving oil to China, but China's going in there and hiding the oil in boats, and we're blowing that shit up. That's what's going on. Now, the news media controlled by the left in China, they're not happy about that, and they're going to say that he's blowing up people. Well, this isn't about narcotics, folks. It's about leverage, control, sovereignty, resources, and souls. Mm-hmm. Now, Venezuela has become a proxy. They're a pawn, just like the Ukraine. It is. But it's not just guarding oil. It's guarding China's route to global dominance. Now, in that sense, it's the piece that guards the queen on this chessboard. And the word tells us kingdoms will rise and fall, and unclean spirits will go out to gather the kings of the earth for war. And that gathering has begun, but not in Jerusalem just yet, but in the places that no one's actually watching. The Caribbean, of all places. The ports, the choke points, the contracts written in the yuan or won. I don't care. People yell at me, say it's not called yuan. I don't care. This war isn't hot yet, but it's real. And it tells us one thing. The beast doesn't need to conquer with force. It just needs your network, your oil, your data, your silence. And in the end, the only kingdom left standing will not be held up by oil rigs or warships, no, but by truth written in fire and sealed in breath. So this is a broken nation with a crown of oil right now. Now, Venezuela holds the largest proven oil reserves on Earth, more than in Saudi Arabia. And it continues to make oil because they're a jungle. Over 300 billion barrels beneath its soil just sitting there. It's richer than Saudi Arabia, Iran, or Russia in crude potential, folks. This is why we're there. Gas shouldn't be $4 a gallon. That sucks. Yet its streets are filled with hunger, its hospitals lack medicine, and its people flee in waves all across every border that they can reach. How did a nation so resourceful, so rich, and resource-rich become so utterly bankrupt? Well, the answer is not merely corruption or socialism. Those were the blades. The real death came by slow crucifixion through currency devaluation, International Monetary Fund loan entanglements, U.S. sanctions, and a decaying petrostate infrastructure that could not maintain itself without external capital. They needed money, and all they had was oil. We need money to get the oil out, and they don't have it. Well, in stepped China. Not with humanitarian aid, but with an oil-backed loans, infrastructure promises, and long-term vision to capture a broken nation. You work with us. We treat good. This is why Venezuela matters, not because of what it is today, but because of what it represents. The crown of oil without the army to protect it. A nation that cannot defend its wealth becomes a satellite, a client, a pawn. And the players, China and U.S., have seen the opening on the board and they moved in. China moved in 20 years ago. The U.S. couldn't move in because, well, we didn't have a person really that cared too much about the United States to stop it because, well, we're being slowly dismantled on purpose. Now, Maduro remains in power not because his people support him, but because Beijing keeps him propped up through surveillance tech, trade lifelines, and the promise of development through the Belt and Road Initiative. Now, in exchange, China gets the keys to Venezuela's oil future. All that crude. And America just watches, not with sympathy, but with strategic dread. Now, because if Venezuela fails or falls fully into the Chinese orbit, well, then the Western Hemisphere itself becomes compromised. That's not good. And the U.S. knows this, folks. They know it. And that's why this isn't just about sanctions or socialism anymore. It's about containment. The desperate attempt to stop a dying nation from becoming China's forward operating base in our own backyard. Yeah, they could put a military base right there. Here we go. This is why Venezuela wears a crown of oil, but walks like a slave. Now, while the world looked away, distracted by Middle East wars and Pacific Island tensions, China quietly laid railroad tracks all across continents, signed port leases, and offered struggling regimes something more powerful than friendship: survival. Venezuela, isolated by sanctions and suffocated by hyperinflation, became one of Beijing's most critical captures in Latin America. And it didn't require a single soldier either. Through the Belt and Road Initiative, Silk Road 2.0, China extended over $60 billion in loans to Caracas, most of it backed by future oil deliveries. And those weren't soft loans. They were oil for debt swaps. Contracts that tied Venezuela's most precious asset to China long-term economic strategy. That sucks. In doing so, Beijing did what no Western nation dared. It offered lifelines but tied them to shackles. Sorry. Chinese state-run firms like CNPC and Sinopec embedded themselves in Venezuela's oil infrastructure. They financed refineries, storage facilities, and even floating production platforms. When U.S. companies fled and European partners withdrew under pressure, China moved in and claimed the keys. And in return, it didn't ask for democracy. It asked for access. All underneath our noses. Now, this debt is not economic. It's strategic obedience. If Venezuela defaults, it loses control of even more oil. If it resists Chinese control, it faces economic collapse. And so Maduro remains tethered, not by ideology, but by necessity. He's got nowhere to go. And his survival now is China's asset. So what will China do if we take it over? I don't think they're going to do dick. For the U.S., though, this isn't just a diplomatic loss. It's an existential warning. If China can take over the largest oil reserve in the world with loans and logistics, it can replicate this model anywhere else, and that's a threat, especially to the Orsini clan. And the belt that they're building isn't just a trade route, folks. It's a noose. And Venezuela was the first neck to actually go through it. Sorry, you shouldn't have done a deal with China. Yes, I know America's assholes and they're bad, but dealing with the Orsinis is way better dealing with them with the Lee family. Sorry, even though they're both wicked. Now, for more than a century, the United States has treated the Caribbean and Latin America as its strategic backyard, an unspoken buffer between the homeland and any foreign threat. The Monroe Doctrine of 1823 was clear. No external power would be allowed to establish dominance in the Western Hemisphere. Well, what happened? But that doctrine, once enforced by fleets and coups, is now being challenged by the quiet hand of Chinese investment. You can't do that. And Venezuela is where that challenge has drawn blood. So that means China is doing something illegally. Yeah. Venezuela's geography makes it irreplaceable, too. Its northern coast touches the Caribbean Sea, just 700 miles from Florida, commanding shipping routes that connect the Gulf of America to the Panama Canal. And whoever controls Venezuela doesn't just control oil, folks. They control the flow of energy and goods. China can't have that. Not when that's so close to America. Through one of the world's most sensitive maritime corridors. You're not going to get this kind of news on your television. And that's why the United States, no matter how loudly it denounces Maduro, can never fully turn away. The nation's location alone makes it a matter of national security. You're going against the treaty that we did in the 1800s. Stop it, stop it, stop it. China's like, I don't care. For decades, Washington's approach to Venezuela was predictable. Corporate partnerships through ExxonMobil and Chevron, diplomatic leverage through the OAS, and occasional sanctions to pressure reform. But after 2017, when U.S. sanctions deepened and America's firms withdrew, China stepped in with money, technology, and patience. Wasn't 2017 when Trump was president? Yeah, under his nose. Way to go, Trump. And in a few short years, Beijing achieved what the U.S. never could, control without invasion. And that can happen. Now, the U.S. finds itself boxed in by its own moral posture. To re-engage economically would appear hypocritical. To step away would secede the hemisphere to China. So instead, Washington deploys destroyers, drones, and covert missions. The shadow tools of empire maintenance. 101. We do it everywhere. These are not designed to topple Maduro, but to send a message to Beijing. You may lend money, but we still own the sea, pal. And China not happy. In truth, the U.S. can't afford to lose Venezuela at all. Not for oil, but for just the ideology and for the precedent here. It makes us look weak. And if China can plant its flag in South America and operate freely under the banner of development, then the entire post-war World War II order begins to erode. Venezuela is the test case, feeling the waters. And the moment where Washington must decide whether the Monroe Doctrine still means anything, or if the Western Hemisphere has already changed hands without a single shot fired. Yeah, and they're not going to court over it either. China just went in, they did it. Well, I probably would too, if I was China. Now, in early 2025, reports began surfacing of U.S. drones conducting anti-narcotics operations off the northern coast of Venezuela. Yeah, right. Boats exploded, convoys vanished, and satellite imagery showed up an uptick in naval activity near the Venezuelan shipping lanes. How did that happen? But this wasn't just another front in the war on drugs. It was a coded confrontation with China, carried out under the cloak of plausible deniability. Now, when I make fun of China, I don't care for China. I don't really view them as our enemy because, well, I just don't. They're trying to topple the Orsinis, and the Orsinis have been really bad to us. But when it comes to the Orsini rule, they're a progressive rule, and they give you more chances to make money and to compete against them than the Lee family would. So, yeah, that's how I feel about it. All right, guys, I'm going to have to take a quick little break. I will be back in about 5 to 10 minutes. Stick around. All right, we're back to the show. Sorry, I had to step out. All right, so tonight we've been talking about Venezuela. We've been talking about China. We've been talking about how China has infiltrated Venezuela. And now we're getting into the real nitty-gritty here about Trump sending naval warships down there to prove to China that they cannot and should not have what they have, but they do it anyway. It's not really something I do. I can't help it. That's just China. But we need to understand our enemy, and, unfortunately, China is the enemy of the Orsini clan. It's the Orsini clan that actually, that is in charge of the West, and the Lee family are in charge of the East. And this is a battle between both, and, we'll see who turns up when it comes up. So, hey, man, it is what it is. I'm just doing what I normally do. So, anyway. All right, let's get back into it. So, the official story, all right, this is about the coded confrontation with China, carried out under the cloak of plausible deniability. That's where we left off, right? Well, now, the official story was very simple. The U.S. forces were targeting drug traffickers. Did you know this? Well, they were. And yet, many of the destroyed vessels weren't cartel-run speedboats. They were red-flagged tankers. Did you know this? Yeah, they were. Red-flagged tankers blew up, disguised and rerouted to carry Venezuelan crude oil to Chinese buyers, circumventing U.S. sanctions. You're not supposed to do that, China, but they did it anyway. Yeah. And by taking out these shipments, Washington wasn't just enforcing internal law, it was disrupting China's oil supply chain. Okay, that's what they were doing, and sending a clear message through fire and steel. Now, behind the headlines, the CIA had been given expanded operational authority over there. Former President Trump, returned to power in 2024, openly admitted the agency had been authorized to do what needs to be done. First time in history that a president just admitted we send in the CIA to control countries. That's very telling. Leaked documents and insider testimony confirmed what many suspected: a covert war was being and already underway. One that involved sabotage of ports, interceptions of electronic communications, and infiltration of oil terminals by proxy forces loyal to Western intelligence. So we're going over there right now. We're just blowing shit up. We're blowing up their ports. We're blowing up their railways. Yeah, we are destroying everything that China built to get that oil. And China now, they're screwed. They're not going to get the oil from Venezuela unless they decide to go to war with us. Well, are they gonna? I don't know. Doubtful. Not yet. It's just not time. Now, this shadow conflict isn't meant to bring down Maduro overnight. It's meant to undermine China's investment, to create uncertainty and initiate the cost of control. Now, every strike, every disruption signals to Beijing that the U.S. will not allow a silent annexation of Venezuela to go uncontested. Right? The chessboard has turned kinetic right now, but it's only in fragments, in darkness, and with just enough ambiguity to avoid global outrage, right? Because China went in there illegally and did it. knowing that there was literally a maritime law treaty that no one was supposed to take over any of the South countries. Otherwise, we would have done that. We would have taken over Mexico and all the rest. But we've got this treaty thing, And so they have to put other things out there in the open and basically lie to the public about what's really going on. So this covert campaign here, it actually reveals the deeper truth. The war of the future will not be fought over ideology, but over supply routes, data flows, and energy sovereignty. This is why Trump has sent the National Guard to all of the ports in the blue states that are trading with China behind the scenes. Okay, that's really what it is. They're there to go and stop the underhand money coming in from China to blue states. Okay, it's a little deal they have. You let our goods in, and we'll pay you money, and we're going to avoid the tariffs. That's what they're doing. All right, Trump ain't going to have that, and so Trump is fighting the Supreme Court. If he's allowed to send the National Guard in to stop violence. But that's not really even what he cares about. That's just a decoy. He's already sent them in to set up shop and start doing research and finding out through Secret Service and others who are loyal to the West and Orsini to stop all of those that are stealing from behind, the tariffs back, what Trump set up. So this is the deeper truth, that this ideology is all over supply routes, data, and energy sovereignty. And the CIA is not defending democracy, it's defending the leverage here. In Venezuela, bleeding at the crossroads of superpower ambition has become the first battlefield in this new kind of war, a war without declarations, but only detonations. Now, Venezuela isn't going to post on their media all the bombs blowing up all the infrastructure that China's been building for them. No way. Okay, because then it will out them as doing a deal with China that they're not supposed to do. Okay? Quid pro quo kind of a deal. Mm-hmm. Now, the Western Hemisphere was once considered immune to foreign occupation. No Asian power had ever established significant presence in its waters, let alone its own governments, down in the South. But that era is now over. The shadow of the Chinese dragon now stretches across the Caribbean, but not with tanks or troops, but with ports, pipelines, and partnerships. And Venezuela is its launch pad. The Silk Road 2.0 will not work without Venezuela, and Trump's killing it. Now, if a blue state gets a president in within the next 3 years, then Venezuela will go back to normal. They'll rebuild. We will rebuild and get that Belt Road going. That is until a civil war happens and either Orsini's or the Lee family win America. Because that's where we are, folks. Every time we get a leftist president, that means China is in favor, and China makes money off of your money. And not all through not through the Federal Reserve, but off of embargo, ports, and all that stuff, and giving favors. But if the red states are in control of Congress and the presidency, then they are working straight for the Orsini clan, and you're still getting robbed. So it doesn't matter. But we really don't want China to take over America, honestly, because they will put in a communist nation for America, just like they're doing in Canada. Mm-hmm. That's what they're doing. China has a lot of influence in Canada. Mm-hmm. Now, in Venezuela alone, China has gained stakes in deep water ports, okay? Also in surveillance infrastructure and telecommunications and critical energy corridors. Now, the aim isn't just economic, it's strategic encirclement. And they've been using NGOs, just Chinese companies or companies outside of China that China owns to go in there and do these deals with. So it's not like they brought in a bunch of battleships and said, all right, we're going to start doing business with Venezuela. No, they just quietly did it by paying money and making deals. That's just what they do. Now, from a geopolitical perspective, this strategic encirclement. China is quietly achieving what the Soviet Union never could. So, sorry, Russia, you messed up. A lasting presence just south of the U.S. homeland. Unlike the brute force of Cold War ideologies, the new model is seductive. It's offering money, development, and digital modernization of exchange for loyalty, helping Venezuela get out of the 1960s. Seriously. China doesn't ask its client states to adopt communism. They're not saying, no, we don't want communism. It only asks that they adopt dependence. Dependence on China. And dependence is precisely what Venezuela gave. Now, as U.S. sanctions collapsed its economy, China offered not just loans, but engineering crews, port management software, satellite access, and digital infrastructure. These aren't just economic gifts. They are soft military installations, cloaked as commerce. And today, Chinese technicians help monitor Venezuela's ports. And tomorrow, they could be watching U.S. naval movements from those same terminals. And that's not good. Not for you, not for America, if you want to be under the Orsini rule. Now, this is the creeping militarization of trade. And Washington sees it. The deployment of U.S. assets in the southern Caribbean is not merely to intercept smuggling oil or narcotics. It's actually to block the expansion of a rival empire. And the presence of the U.S. Navy is a line drawn in saltwater, a signal that the Caribbean is not up for auction, and get your shit out. But the dragon is very patient. It doesn't strike in haste. It coils around the arteries of trade and waits for its moment. And Trump, being the idiot he is, by admitting he sent the CIA in there, well, now they're preparing for a CIA coup. Venezuela has already opened the gate. And unless that gate is closed, the entire region could become a chessboard where every move ends in checkmate. For the United States, of course. Now, while the world imagines Venezuela's conflict in terms of oil, inflation, or socialism, a quieter transformation has taken place beneath the headlines. It's the rise of a digital dictatorship, forged with Chinese code. The tools of control are no longer iron bars and bullet casings. They are facial recognition towers, biometric databases, and centralized digital ID systems, all supplied, installed, and monitored with help from Beijing. Now, at the heart of the technocratic control grid is ZTE, the Chinese telecom giant blacklisted by the U.S., but welcomed with open arms in Venezuela, under the guise of modernization. Now, ZTE helped install Venezuela's Fatherland Card, a state-issued smart ID linked to food rations. Oh, that's not good. Employment. Ooh. Voting eligibility. And medical access. Oh, well, sounds like a control grid to me. Oh, it sure is, baby. And if you speak against the regime, your card stops working. Way to go, Venezuela. You partnered with the wrong conservatives. Yeah, China's conservative. The Orsini family are progressive. They will allow a middle class, but not China. Now, if you fall out of favor or speak against the regime, or, well, your digital card is erased, and it's social credit without mercy. So, Venezuela, you're going to remain poor, and while they steal and take your oil for nothing. That's life. Perfected in the laboratories of Beijing and exported to Caracas. Yeah, I didn't do it. Now, the system is more than political repression. It is spiritual compression, a means to crush free will through digital dependence. China's model of soft totalitarianism offers regimes like Maduro's a way to stay in power indefinitely without needing to win hearts, only to track bodies. The state no longer governs by consent, but by signal strength. And behind that system lies the architecture of the beast, a prototype for the global infrastructure of control prophesied in Revelations 13, where no man may buy or sell unless he bears the mark, the name, or the number. Today in Venezuela, it's a QR code on a government-issued card. Tomorrow, it could be embedded in the palm or forehead. The technology's ready, folks. The conditioning has begun. Now, this is why China's influence in Venezuela matters far beyond economics or territory. Yes. It is exporting the blueprint for the end-time grid. One nation at a time. A surveillance system baptized in artificial light with no place for truth, repentance, or grace. The dragon gives power to the beast, and the beast rewards those who worship it with food, shelter, and access. Good little boy. But deny the system and you are cash out. Digitally excommunicated, erased from the marketplace of man. So don't do it. Now, Venezuela didn't just sell oil to China, folks. It sold the soul of its citizenry. Citizenry. I think I got it right. Pixel by pixel. And the U.S. isn't just fighting a rival empire either. It's trying to hold back a flood that's already breached the gates, thanks to the left who work with China. Sorry, that's my research. The Democratic Party is a socialist, communist, and working for China and Russia. And they are blaming their own enemy through a Sal Alinsky technique to tell the people what you're doing, but that your enemy's doing it. Now, in ancient times, kings would offer gold, grain, or the blood of bulls to preserve their thrones. Now, in our time, they offer crude oil, flowing through pipelines like a modern-day libation poured out to the gods of global finance. And for Nicolas Maduro, oil is no longer Venezuela's birthright. It is the sacrifice he lays at the feet of Beijing to preserve his fragile reign. Now, don't give China credit here, okay? China didn't come in like, we give good deal. No, they came in with blackmail. They came in with terror, okay? They didn't come in just like, no, it's all good. We're going to be nice people. No. They came in and they took control, okay? They have the same type of mafias that the Orsinis have, the Italian mafias, the type that, will just kill people just to get them out of the way. And every barrel in Venezuela that leaves its shores is part of a quiet covenant. China finances the drilling platforms. They lease the tankers. They insure the routes and facilitates the laundering of identity. Rebranding Venezuelan oil as Malaysian or Brazilian to slip past Western sanctions. This is not commerce. It's strategic alchemy, turning sanctioned fuel into sanctioned influence. And China's cheating, but we do too. Maduro has become a priest of his own altar, offering oil not to benefit his own people, but to maintain Chinese loyalty. He sold his soul. His people should recognize that. He's a loser with the rims knocked off. The loans from China are not being repaid in currency, but in daily shipments of heavy crude. And these shipments lock Venezuela into a petroleum vassalage, where any attempt to pull back would collapse the regime instantly. Well, that sucks. Now, Beijing has no interest in easing that burden either. The heavier the change, the more obedient the client. Oil becomes a lever, not just for energy, but for political alignment, military cooperation, and international votes at the UN. China doesn't care whether Venezuela is democratic, humane, or solvent. It only cares that it remains useful, a spigot that flows towards the east. Now, the United States understands this, which is why its strategy has shifted from overt regime change to strategic disruption. Blow shit up. Every drone strike, every interdicted tanker, every naval maneuver near Venezuelan waters, it's not about blocking drugs. It's about spoiling China's oil harvest. This is a resource war cloaked in moral language. And the real target isn't Caracas. It's the refinery networks in Guangzhou, the futures market in Shanghai, and the BRI pipelines that extend the dragon's reach. In this game, oil is more than fuel. It is currency, covenant, and control. And Venezuela, once sovereign over its own resources, has become an altar boy in the global cathedral of technocratic power, handing out offerings to a foreign empire while its people starve at the door. Way to go. Now, naval destroyers don't simply patrol. They posture. When you have one outside of your purview, that's not good. And drone strikes don't just neutralize, they narrate. And when the United States moves military assets into the Caribbean Sea under the banner of anti-narcotics operations, it's not only projecting power, it's broadcasting resolve to China, to Latin America, to the world, that we're coming, baby, and we're going to kick ass and take names, and we're running out of beer. Now, America's military presence near Venezuela is about far more than interdiction. It is a geopolitical light show, a modern-day version of Roman legions lining the roads, not to fight, but to remind everyone who still rules the region. These ships, subs, and aircraft carriers are optical diplomacy. I love that phrase. Sending a message that no matter how far the dragon stretches its claws, the eagle has not abandoned its own nest. And it's not just China that hears this message. Nations like Colombia, Brazil, and Panama, U.S. allies or strategic fence-sitters, watch these moves very closely. They're shaking in their pants with a little P. When the U.S. sends ships into contested waters or disables reflagged oil tankers with precision strikes, it's not just enforcing sanctions. It's reinforcing credibility. It's basically saying, we will not allow a Chinese satellite to flourish on our doorstep without consequence. Something the blue states won't do because they work for China. They're getting paid by China. And same with Texas. Texas is almost turning blue because, China did a great job stealing elections over there. But these optics also serve a domestic purpose. In a time when America's global posture has been questioned after Afghanistan, after rising internal division, after shifting alliances in Europe and Asia, military action in the Western Hemisphere restores the image of American dominance. It signals to the homeland that the empire still has some teeth, that the Monroe Doctrine hasn't been buried beneath the waves, and that the U.S. will still fight for influence, even if not for morality. Right. This is not about conquest. It's about containment. The U.S. is not trying to liberate Venezuela. We need to bring you democracy now. What a joke. That ship has sailed. What Washington is doing now is boxing China in, making it more expensive, more dangerous, and more unpredictable to keep operating freely in the hemisphere. It is an undeclared game of naval chicken. Who will flinch? Who will escalate? And who will be blamed when a mistake turns into a flashpoint? Not good. But beyond all the posturing lies a simple truth. Pressure is power, and the side that withdraws first loses. In this game of empire optics, love that phrase, the Caribbean has become a theater not of battle but of symbolism. And Venezuela, whether it knows it or not, is center stage. Thus comes in the propaganda proxy and the people. You see, as empires maneuver and drones circle overhead, the people of Venezuela remain trapped in a twilight zone between competing narratives. In Caracas, the regime frames U.S. strikes as colonial aggression, blaming American imperialism for every food shortage and blackout. Meanwhile, Washington insists it's fighting narco-traffickers. and preserving regional stability. China said, go on. And behind both facades, China says nothing because it doesn't need to. Its influence speaks in ports, loans, and digital infrastructure. Its propaganda is silent, but it's still structural. This is the nature of modern proxy war. Truth is irrelevant. Control is everything. The Venezuelan people have become hostages not just to hunger, but to storylines written in foreign capitals. While Maduro tightens surveillance and crushes dissent with Chinese tools, or sends out his army, the U.S. funds covert narratives through exiled media, NGOs, and informational warfare. So the battlefield is no longer just land or sea. It's perception itself. It's what the people see on the television. And in this war of perception, the people suffer, unfortunately. The poor Venezuelan people who didn't ask for China to come in and, give such a shitty deal. They see their oil fueling Chinese refineries while they wait in ration lines. They hear Washington condemn tyranny while watching their homeland become a staging ground for foreign brinkmanship. They are told to resist dictatorship, but punished if they speak. They are caught between a regime that exploits them, a foreign empire that ignores them, and another empire that uses them. Poor Venezuela. Now, Venezuela has become the archetype of the pawn state. A population of millions reduced to strategic leverage. For China, they are a conduit to South American power. For the U.S., they are a liability that must be managed, not freed. And for the people themselves, there is no deliverance in sight, only a deepening surveillance, economic stagnation, and a rotating door of foreign handlers. Well, no wonder why they're coming to America. This is the quiet tragedy of proxy war. When governments become puppets, the citizens become props. And their lives are scripted for geopolitical theater. And their voices muted by the roar of global ambition. And yet, in the shadows of false narratives, there remains a remnant. You guys. It's a gnat. A remnant. A people who see through the veil, who discern the spirits behind the thrones, who need to pray for the Venezuelan people. And who understand that deliverance will not come from Beijing or Washington, but from a kingdom not made by human hands. You see, empires rise on trade and fall on overreach. Kingdoms forge alliances with steel and shatter on their pride. The United States and China, locked in this silent war over Venezuela, are merely competing for oil, ports, or territory. They are building altars, and each altar demands a sacrifice. No, they're not blowing up drug lords. China sacrifices truth for control. Its Belt and Road Initiative is a digital Babylon, paved not with bricks, but with surveillance towers, and debt chains, and biometric compliance. The dragon whispers stability, but binds with code. It exports not freedom, but efficiency, not repentance, but regulation. And in Venezuela, it has found a perfect testing ground for a world where the system is God. The United States sacrifices credibility for dominance. Its presence in the Caribbean is less about liberty and more about leverage. It condemns dictatorship while tolerating regimes that serve its interest. It offers no repentance, only power projection, a fading echo of a republic that once feared God but now fears only irrelevance. It waves a war on behalf of oil, wages war, and not righteous. And not righteousness. It protects borders, but not covenants. But above both towers, one red, one white, stands another throne, and that throne is not shaken. And by the way, doesn't California's flag have a red star in it? I'm just saying. Who are they loyal to? Not America. Now, Daniel, the prophet, saw a stone that was cut without hands strike the feet of the statue and grind the kingdoms of man to dust. And that stone is Jesus Christ. That kingdom is not built with banks, ballots, or battleships. It's built with his breath, the Spirit of God in the hearts of those who refuse to bow to the beast, whether Eastern or Western. Now, Venezuela is not the end. It is just the mirror, a reflection of what happens when nations abandon the fear of the Lord and sell their inheritance for access, applause, or survival. It is a warning to every remnant soul watching from the hills. Do not pledge allegiance to empires that devour their children for power. Because when this game ends, and it will, the dragon and the eagle will fall, and only those left standing will be those who bowed to no king but to Jesus Christ, carried no mark but his name, and gave no offering but their own faith in him. The kingdoms of this world shall become the kingdom of our Lord Jesus Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. Amen. Amen. Hallelujah. Now the board is set, but the throne remains, and they're just going to continue playing this game of power. More power mean more money. More money mean more power. More power mean more money. Venezuela is not just a nation in crisis, guys. It is the ground beneath the feet of giants. And it is where global powers play quiet wars with loud consequences. Where ships explode, loans are leveraged, and the poor are weaponized. But beneath all the strategy, all the sanctions, all the strikes, lies a deeper truth. That this is not about Venezuela. This is about the future of world governance. And China wants to be number one because they hate America. Well, a lot of us do, but not the country. We hate the leaders, the bankers, the international bankers who came in and took power over us and our land, even though we did the same thing to the Native Americans. The dragon has entered the Western Hemisphere, folks, but not with fire, but with fiber optics, ports, and petro contracts. The eagle has responded, but not with treaties, but with drones and a shadow war. Both say they bring order, both say they bring security, but neither brings truth. Neither brings repentance. Neither even brings life, saving a life. No, they're gonna kill many people, many innocent people, women and children and senior citizens, just like Israel did in Gaza. So this conflict is a symptom, not a cause. A symptom of what happens when kingdoms build without God, when nations trade inheritance for influence, when power becomes currency and sovereignty becomes collateral. And in the end, the chessboard belongs to neither the East or the West. In the end, it belongs to Jesus Christ. If you're a Christian, start acting like one. This conflict is a symptom. It belongs to the Lord. And the kings of the earth may set their pieces, their chess pieces. They may fund their bishops and deploy their knights. Let them. Let them. Who cares? We're not from here. They may move their pawns like nations, but there is one move that they do not foresee, and that's the stone not cut by human hands. Thank you, Jesus. And when that stone strikes, it will not strike Venezuela alone. It will shatter every empire, every lie, every digital chain, and every false throne. The belt will break, and the eagle will fall, and the beast will be cast down. And the remnant, you guys, you and me, who have been fighting tirelessly to expose evil, those who refuse to serve neither altar, we will rise, but not in rebellion. We will rise through prayer, through fasting, through spreading the gospel, through helping everyone see what we see by telling the truth, because the truth shall set us free, right? But in the reign of the king who cannot be bought, cannot be bribed, and never will be overthrown, the game ends where it began, in the hands of the Creator. And Jesus Christ is no player. He is actually the judge.
Why do 75% of people feel exhausted all the time? The answer might surprise you. In the 1920s, Standard Oil decided to dive into medicine. They pushed synthetic petroleum into our drugs. Sure, it masked symptoms, but it wrecked our guts. Our good bacteria, which fight off parasites and heavy metals, got wiped out by crude oil. But here's the good news. We can fix this by going back to nature. Introducing Elite Potion, the world's top detox program. It restores your good bacteria by removing toxic threats like aluminum, strontium, barium, and parasites. Imagine feeling energized and alive again. They said there couldn't be a pill that did it all. We invented it. Visit elitepotion.com and reclaim your health from synthetic pharmaceuticals. Your body will thank you.
Guys, stop eating Taco Bell, okay? Just stop. This is Cause Before Symptom. I'm your host, James Garner. Tune in tomorrow night when God gives me another revelation to tell you guys all about. Hey, go to jamesgarner.com, sign up to my newsletter, and download my free books. Also, go to elitepotion.com and sign up for my award-winning detox program of parasites and heavy metals. It's what's attacking the temple and make it feel better. Oh, it will. And if you guys can do me a big favor, can you? If you could all just stop eating Taco Bell, I think this world would be a better place. We'll see you guys tomorrow.